Kia ora tātou, talofa lava, salam, namaste, ni hao, konnichiwa, and of course g'day. So look, it's really good to be here. It was great to hear the Minister's words. Thank you, Minister. You're welcome to stay, of course, if you want. You don't have to. So it's great to be here talking to such an enthusiastic group and to know that there's a whole sense of enthusiasm working outside, wishing they could get in as well. I thought I'd do three things. I'd talk about three areas where DPMC has an interest in diversity and in super diversity, and in particular where we can only achieve what we think we need to achieve and that the country needs to achieve with the support and the engagement of others. So I thought I would focus most of my remarks around those three things because I think there's a practical outcome from it that's going to be advantageous. So the three of them will be, one of them will be national security. May I'll talk a little bit about that. I'll talk about policy, which is where I'll kick off. I'll talk a little bit about nationhood and what that might mean in a New Zealand context. Let me start talking about policy. I have a role which I've had for a bit over a year now as the head of the policy profession. And that's an interesting role. It's charged with lifting the capability and the performance of the policy community across the board. And as you won't be surprised to hear me say, policy is fundamentally important to a whole lot of things about New Zealand. It's important to our prosperity, the policy that David's people and others pull together in relation to economic development. It's important in building a sense of social cohesion, whether that's the MSD, whether it's the Treasury, whether it's community ethnic affairs, or wherever it happens to be. Policy is a fundamental thing that as government we have to do and we have to do well. We kicked off the policy project with a stock take, and it's a worthwhile read if you go to the DPMC website, because part of that assessment is how are we doing now. One of the things we find, and this won't come as a surprise, is that the policy workforce is not characterised by super diversity. There's a reasonable number of women, a reasonable number of men. The overarching sense, though, is it's Wellington-based. It's a kind of typical Beltway crowd like us. It's lightly represented out of Auckland. There are relatively few Asians. There's a reasonable number of Māori, but fewer than we might hope in the policy profession and so on. So one of the clear things that we're engaging on in relation to that project is how do we bring more diverse experiences to bear on any particular policy project. Part of that is about Auckland, so there's a lot of talk across government at the moment about how we get a stronger sense of engagement with Auckland and whether we can draw more policy from Auckland. It's actually also about using devices that might not just be about the people in the room, but the diverse perspectives that you bring, so different forms of design thinking. There's various innovation labs that have crept up where people's experiences are brought much more directly into the policy process than the legitimate but sometimes limited approach of clear problem definition, bit of evidence, set of options and pros and cons and the answer. Not that there's anything wrong with that as a broad framework, but there's much more I think we have to bring to it. So first thing then, the ask I have of you, particularly those of you involved in the policy space, is how you can further enrich in your policy community the sorts of techniques that you use to ensure that you bring diverse perspectives to the policy process. And in doing that, I've got no doubt that we can lift the game on policy across the board. Let me talk about national security. So May, you gave a bit of a segue into this, a bit of an introductory set of remarks, and part of it is clearly about how we feel, how we ensure that communities in New Zealand are well engaged in being part of New Zealand, part of their local community. So we are doing work across government, as you might expect, in counter-terrorism, and that's got all the sort of hefty things that you might expect in it, such as whether you've got the right powers and legislation, whether you've done the right preparation for dealing with a counter-terrorism event. But a key part of it is actually the preventing radicalisation in the first place, and there's no question that the best approach we have to countering terrorism in New Zealand is the prevention one. And the key thing about prevention is actually about making sure we don't have the conditions where radicalisation occurs, where you get individuals who feel a need to do something drastic because they're feeling dislocated, because they're out on a limb, because they don't have the supports around them that otherwise might prevent them from taking some drastic steps. There's a huge number of government agencies involved in this. Police, I pay tribute to the work your agency does, both on the hard edge of counter-terrorism, but actually on this more holistic sort of soft edge as well. And the engagement police does with local communities is really important in helping identify where some of these touch points are, and actually getting a voice into those communities and sort of ears into those communities that mean we have a sense of what's going on. Obviously the Office of Ethnic Communities plays a part here, but so does MSD and others as well. So there's a lot in the social cohesion space that plays directly into national security. I would also just mention though the kind of broader community resilience point. Part of DPMC is a little agency called McDem, the Ministry of Civil Defence and Emergency Management. And a key part of what makes McDem successful, and indeed one of the strengths that emerged in the immediate aftermath of the Christchurch earthquakes, was the community resilience that existed there as well. And that's clearly something that's not just about diversity, but you can see the diversity element. We need communities that are connected one with another, that respect each other and know how to engage with each other. And the more we have that, the stronger we are as a country in responding to those sorts of events. So my plea to all of you is think about community cohesiveness, think about all of those sorts of connecting things and the work that you do. Part of that is a superdiversity agenda, and it will have a real payback, important advantages for us as we think about national security more generally. Let me touch briefly on nationhood. I'm always nervous when I talk about nationhood because you can immediately get a reaction that here we are trying to socially engineer some different sense of New Zealanders. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not very clear about that up front. But there is a sense that as we evolve as a nation, the more we can think about that process, talk about what's happening to us as a country, and I think the comments that Liz will be making a bit later on, I have no doubt will take us into that space. The more we can understand the evolving picture of what it is to be a New Zealander, the more we can celebrate that point and accentuate the positive aspects of that, of what there are many. So we do that in a few sort of small ways in DPMC. We do it through the support we provide the Governor General in the program that he comes up with. We do it through the Honours Secretariat, and we are always looking for more nominations of a wider, more diverse group of people into the honours system. So please take that away. And we do it in things like the flagging project. The Flag Secretariat is a great little team that we're hosting at the moment in DPMC. The flag referendum you can receive in 26 different languages. And you can get a braille version as well if you want to in a tactile way feel a description of what the different flag options look like. So that evolving story around nationhood is one that I think is important, and my encouragement to you is not to go